live happily ever after. She wanted a white picket fence. But when she entered into her relationship, she didn't have any fence. Her friends could clearly see it. They tried to warn her and even tried an intervention. It was clear to them that she was being subjected to a simmering violent tension. But she wanted to be a bride, and he clearly wanted her to be his wife. And so she met him at the altar and dreamed of a happy married life. And when the door closed behind them, it took the light out of her eyes, and she began the descent into hell. She tried to hide behind her lies. Others saw the injuries their cover stories couldn't hide. And then he tried to help her, but she wouldn't let them take her aside. What had happened to the spirit that once bubbled from within her? What happened to the person they all knew that once had been her? But only death would tell the whole story that the autopsy would disclose. The images they took of her body, their rigor mortis had finally froze. And bit by bit the newspapers revealed the dark odyssey of her abuse, that she had become nothing but a target this raging man would use. They found 30 air gun pellets that were embedded in her skin. The body on the mattress in the basement was somehow way too thin. The sickness smell of rampant bacterial infection that permeated the room, from the untreated third and fourth degree burns that brought about her doom. 11 days she had suffered from the boiling water he poured upon her, and 40% of her body was covered with the burns that she had on her. And he claimed it was an accident, that she fought against medical attention. But we all know what it was about, a tortured woman's fearful apprehension. There were blood smears in the home, and the doors with broken frames, notes that said he loved her, and notes with ugly names. Both her eyes were blackened, and her nose had been recently broken. He knew why the words "please help me" were not the ones she could have spoken. There were breaks that healed untreated, and the scars of older burns. The kind of abuse you see in a woman, the abuser says never learns. 6 of her ribs had been broken, and there were bruises that had begun to fade. The evidence of abuse covered the body in the basement where it lay. And yet he had the gall to say he loved her, and it was an accidental burning, and he couldn't convince her to go to the hospital as night and day were turning. When she somehow had the strength to fight him from getting the help she needed, right up to the point where her life had finally receded. He stands accused of her murder, this man who tortured her to death. The only thing he didn't rob her of was the last and final breath. I saw him in the paper, and all I wanted to do was knock him off his chair. I wanted to find a way to hurt him, for leaving her with a life that wasn't unfair. All the things he'd done to her kept running through my mind. I tried to find some understanding, but it's not something I could find. To take the dreams of another person and smash them into little pieces, to use the most horrible ways to torture her until her life finally ceases. To pull the wings off her like the wings pulled from a fly, to leave her in such cruelty that in the end she would die. And in death so slow and painful, so unbelievable to picture, he left her alone and dying like she was nothing but a household fixture. 2 of the air gun pellets were fired into her after she had been burned. And when you think of what he was doing, it's enough to make your stomach turn. And then he tried to say it was an accident, but the only accident was him, the man that he abused this woman until the light in her turned dim. That he shot her 30 times with an air gun clearly identifies him as sadistic, and the psychology of the abuse left her in a relationship that was clearly fatalistic. Slowly he transformed her into a hostage to all his violence, until the day she breathed her last breath into the eerie silence. Too difficult to understand how she could let this happen to her. How could she come to accept the cruelty in the way he came to view her? But it's inch by inch that the abuser pulls her across the great divide, from a place of normal to the insanity of his violent side, from a place of self-respect to a place of self-despise, from the ability to see the truth to a belief in all his lies, from a place of self-understanding to a place filled with self-doubt, only to wake up one morning and wonder what your life is all about, only to end up in a violent suspension, just trying to make it through another day, robbed completely of identity and left with nothing left to say, no longer identifying as human, no longer believing you're alive, just another ugly statistic, just another 1 in 5. And so she died alone in the agony of her pain, leaving behind the remnants of far too many bloody stains. The last few phone calls she had while pretending to be okay, talking to the ones who loved her, who would not see her another day, unable even then to ask for help to save her life. She died in our city, just another battered wife. But that's not who she was. Donna Jones was once her name. She was once so full of laughter before the monster came. So may she rest in peace.